Have you ever sent a quote to a client and they come back with, this is way out of my budget, or even worse, they don't even respond to you? Been there, done that, and I have the therapy bills to show for it. In this video, I'm going to tell you all the things you need to know to avoid getting ghosted by clients or them coming back with, I can't afford this. So let's look at where the problem lies. If you quote a price that the client has perceived as too high, it's a you problem. I know we like to hate on clients like, oh, why don't they want to invest in this? It would be so good for their business. The thing is, if that client doesn't want to spend that money, there's nothing you can do to convince them. This doesn't mean your prices are too high just because the client has perceived them as such. It means that everything that you have communicated up until the point that you communicated the actual price has led the client to believe that the product is going to cost less than what it actually costs. What does this mean? The client thinks based on what they've seen from you. So they've seen your website, your portfolio, they've talked to you. When people buy a product, they already have an idea of how much it's going to cost before they hear the actual price. It's the same thing when you go and you buy a car. You have an idea about the price based on the brand that you have experienced. A Mercedes is going to be more expensive than an Opel. And that's something you know before somebody even tells you the price. And it's the same thing with creative services. Everything that you have marketed, everything that you have put out there has already created an image for your brand, and the client has an idea of what that brand is going to cost. If a client has come to you, they've already been sold on something to the point that they want to contact you. If they have a conversation with you and they still want to know your price, they feel like you are the right fit. If you come to them with that price and it doesn't match their expectations, this means there's a disconnect with your positioning and your pricing. And it means that the client has been surprised by your price, which shouldn't happen. This also means that client shouldn't have been coming to you in the first place, and it means you're actually attracting clients that are wrong for you. You don't want to be out there trying to convince these clients to pay you. That's not the goal. You want to be out there attracting clients who want to pay you the prices that you have established for your business. So how do you fix this issue? You have to go back to the very, very first step of creating a business, which is deciding how to position yourself in the market that you're in. You need to reevaluate things like your value and how you're communicating that to the outside world. Every business has value, and every business has clients that will come to that business based on that value. You obviously see yourself as having value if your prices reflect that. And if clients are coming to you and they're saying that price is too high, it doesn't mean you need to put your prices down. It means you need to find the clients that are going to pay that price and see that value that you see in your business. And that is possible. Trust me. We have had high prices since probably the second year of business when we realized our pricing strategy that we had before wasn't sustainable. We raised our prices significantly. The number of clients that came in went down. That is true. But it doesn't matter because you only need a few clients to pay you that amount to be successful. If your prices go up, you need less clients and less projects to meet the same amount of money that you needed before with more clients and more projects. What does this mean for you? More time to do those projects, more energy to do those projects, and at the end of the day, a work-life balance that you don't have when you need a lot of projects to meet the same amount of profit. That was a little detour into pricing strategy, but if you want more in that, check out our other videos on our channel. So how do you communicate your value before giving a price quote? It doesn't mean you have to put your prices on your website or anywhere for anybody to see before they contact you. That doesn't need to happen for a client to have the right idea of your price before they come to you. Value is a complex discussion and it's a complex thing to communicate, but it is possible with things like, what does your branding look like? What does your portfolio look like? What are the other clients in your portfolio and what do those projects look like? All these things will determine how a client perceives your value. It has a lot to do with branding and marketing. It has a lot to do with language, and it also has to do with the way that you talk to a client and the way that you have that first conversation with them if they feel like you are worth the amount that they are prepared to pay. So a little story time. Last year, we landed a client for a very high budget, the highest budget we've ever been able to close. It was a design-only project, so a project where we were only responsible for the web design. The client had already told us what where their budget range was, but we weren't sure if they were prepared to spend that money on us or if they were prepared to spend the higher end of that budget or not. We decided to pitch the higher end, which was $150,000, and we were able to close that contract. How? We understood 3 things and were able to communicate those in a way that the client and we were on the same page about the value before we even sent the proposal. So while we already had an idea of that budget, and of course we wanted to meet that budget in some way, we wanted to push the boundary because we felt like the value of this project was on the upper end of their range. At the end of the day, it doesn't even matter what the budget is. If you understand these 3 things and you can communicate them well, the client and you will be on the same page about the value. Once you send that proposal, there are no surprises, and the client will want to spend that money on you and they will be happy to pay you that price. So what are those 3 things? Number 1, understanding what the project means to them. This is something we call client value. Client value means looking at what the value of the project is to the client's business and how they are going to profit off of this project being successful. Number 2 is understanding what you can add to the project that only you can do. This is what we call your value. So it could be something like expertise, it could be something like experience, it could be something like strategic thinking, it could be your portfolio. There are a lot of things that add up to your value. And these are the types of things that you can communicate through your marketing and your portfolio. Putting projects in your portfolio that reflect your expertise, that reflect your knowledge, that reflect your strategic thinking, and talking about these things in that way, making it clear that your portfolio isn't just aesthetics and it isn't just beautiful work. It is also strategic and it is successful in a business sense. You added value to that project and the business you worked for was successful because of the work that you did. Number 3, and this is super important to understand, is that you can assess the level of effort of a project, and also that you understand that the level of effort for each client and each project is going to be different. You can have 2 projects with the exact same deliverables, word for word listed out, but the level of effort is going to be different. Why? Some clients, like a big corporate client, are going to have a lot more people involved. The teams are bigger, the feedback rounds are different because they are driven by strategic business practices and not, I like this color, I don't like this color, can I see 10 different versions of this? They have very clear business goals and it's all driven by that. There are a lot of stakeholders involved. What does this mean? These are people who make decisions. It has to go through a lot of different instances before you can get approval. This means the level of effort for you is higher because there are more people to please. So things like the size of the team, the size of the brand, the risk involved, all those things can change the level of effort of a project, even if the deliverables are the same. So how is that relevant to value and how is that relevant to closing a contract? Bigger clients understand that the level of effort is high for their project, which is why you're able to ask a lot of money from them. And it's also why they are prepared to spend a lot of money on those things. Lower budget clients, especially inexperienced clients, maybe it's their first time creating a business and the first time they're buying creative services. It's very hard to get them to pay you money at all because they don't understand the level of effort involved. Those are not the types of clients you want. You want that second stage of client, which is a client who has maybe created a business before. Those types of clients understand the level of effort that goes into creative services. So back to our story time and how we were able to close that contract. The client was already prepared to spend that money. They already had the budget ready. They were just looking for the right person to spend it on. What we did is we were able to show them that we are worth that amount because we are able to do the work that is going to make their project successful and is going to bring value to their business. Of course, this type of thing only works if the client themselves understands the concept of value. And that's why I was saying this kind of value-based discussion only works with certain type of clients. But in my opinion, these are the types of clients that you want to be attracting and that you want to be working with. So if you want to be working with higher budget clients, and by higher budget clients, I mean anything above a few thousand range for your creative services, you as a service provider need to, 1, understand value, and 2, be able to communicate that value to the client through things like your marketing, your positioning, your branding. And then once that client comes to you because they think you are the right fit, you need to be able to have a conversation with them that makes it clear that everything you've sold up until this point is legit and that you are the right person to spend that money on. When we had the opportunity to pitch for this client, we were not the first choice. There were 2 other agencies involved, one of which was the favorite because just internally there were a lot of people that wanted to work with them, but there were a lot of people that also didn't want to work with them. So at the end of the day, I think it came down to they really just liked us. And sometimes that is the thing that's going to sell a client. What also sold them is that they understood that we were going to be able to provide what they needed from us. While we have made a name for ourselves, particularly in this network that we were in and why we were able to pitch for that project at all to begin with, we were not the biggest name in that pot. What I want to say with this is that you as a small business can also break through and work with bigger clients if you understand these things that we understand at this point in our career. So how do you as a small business land a big budget client? Number one, and this is what this whole video ties into, and anytime we have a video on pricing or positioning, it all comes back to this, okay? You need to understand value and you need to understand how your value affects your price. Number two, make sure your value is reflected in all of your communication. Your website, your social media, the way you talk to the client. Anytime someone comes into contact with your business, your value needs to be clear. If you do this, you won't have clients ghosting you anymore because you won't have those clients coming to you in the first place. Number three, and this is really hard to do when you're starting out because you usually lack the experience, but make sure you understand the level of effort that goes into the work that you do. And this is highly dependent on the client. Don't underbid. If you underbid, it shows that you lack the understanding of how much work is actually going into the project. And with higher budget clients, they see this as a red flag. They're not going to see it like, oh, a good deal, like a smaller budget client would. Sorry again for the thumbs up. They're going to see it as, that's sus that this person doesn't want more money for this, and do they really understand the level of effort here, and are they really going to deliver what we need? So if you lack the experience to assess the level of effort, my recommendation is to go into whatever the product is, that whatever service you provide and whatever the final product is of that, look at that final product from the end user's perspective. So the customer who is going to be using that product, and look at every detail. How are they going to use it? How are they going to come into contact with it? What is their experience like there? And every single small detail. For a website, it's super easy because you can think about, where am I clicking? What are all the things I need to understand here? And then you understand what you as the person creating that thing needs to think about. And then you can assess the level of effort. It's usually much higher than you think of. When you see the final product, it always looks easy, but getting there is not easy. And number four, and this is something I think a lot of people forget, is that with every project you complete successfully, your value is going to go up. Remember to reflect this in your pricing. Your pricing should go up with time. It shouldn't stay the same. Just because you've been in business for 5 years and you've always offered the same price and it's always been a success doesn't mean you need to stay at that price. Obviously, there are things like inflation and other reasons why you should raise your prices, but if you're in an employment, you would get a raise after being at a company for a certain amount of time because your value goes up. You understand the ins and outs, you understand your job, you do your job well, you're going to get a raise. You need to give yourself a raise as a self-employed person too. So your prices should go up with your increased experience. If you want to learn more about running a successful creative business, be sure to check out our course, Creative Business Essentials. There's a link for that in the description below. And if you like this video, subscribe to our channel for more videos like this.